This is Dr. Maddy Roth with Roth Consulting Group. Today I have my first guest on my podcast. I have Caitlin Sapp here with me, and she's the owner of Crew Physical Therapy. So I'm going to just give her the floor a lot today. So Caitlin, can you tell us about yourself and about your practice?
Yeah, so for one, Maddie, thanks for having me. I'm so glad we've crossed paths because we literally talk all day, every day. Being in business is hard and it's incredibly lonely. And so I'm so thankful to have made friends in business that can share the journey. So, first off, thanks for having me. And second, yes, I am like Maddie in a rural area, but I'm in Ohio, so not too far from Michigan there. So Youngstown's a very small town in Ohio, and that's where my physical therapy practice is. So I've been a physical therapist for 10 years. I have a 2-year-old. I'm a wife, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. It's been so fun connecting, and I think we have a pretty deep bond because of our struggles working in a rural area. And I'm always like, Caitlin, what's the weather over there? I just assume we're so close together, even though we're probably pretty far away from each other, but it
It's
just
like 4.5 hours.
okay, that's not too bad. It just seems really similar. And okay, so when did you open your practice and what made you want to open your practice? What kind of led up to that moment?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I opened my practice first in 2018, November of 2018. I had always been in private practice, and I thought for sure, I was like, I will fight the good fight, right? Of being private practice, being able to treat people well. And then the private practice that I was working for, they sold to a hospital system, big hospital system. They actually just announced bankruptcy last week. And, they took us over during the buyout. I came home and I told my husband, like, I will stay here for 3 months and then I'm quitting. But the buyout process took a long time. So that's when I started like my side gig of doing it privately in November of 2018. And then in July of 2019, I quit my full time job and went all in. So I've been doing it for a little while. I did not hire my staff until I had my baby, which is probably my biggest regret, which we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, so I've been doing this for 5 years now.
That's awesome. So the practice you originally worked for, was that a cash pay practice?
No, no, I pretty sure like when I started in cash pay, I don't think that there was anybody else in the area doing it. So
Yeah,
it was very unheard of. And it's become a
yes.
little bit more popular now.
Yeah. I am kind of in the same boat, like no cash practices in my area. Now that I kind of started a trend. Now I see some other people popping up having little solopreneur businesses in the area. But prior to that, it was like, I was kind of like feeling I was the evil person, like, oh, she's cash practice. Like, wow, she doesn't take insurance. Like, that's just terrible. And now it's getting a little more accepted in this
Mhm.
area. I think kind of the area we live in, it's a little less common compared to the East Coast and the US. It's a little more popular. I mean, that kind of just goes to show it's tough to make it in these private practices that are small mom pop shops that take insurance. So, kind of more credibility in what we're doing too. It's just a lot of hospital systems are taking over, and even the hospitals are struggling a little bit too. It's crazy to see the scene, but I think we're pretty safe being cash practices, and that's the way we're all going.
And that's what I say all the time. Like, we don't do it to be mean. We do it to be fair. People want to feel better, and we can provide that landscape for them to be able to do that. And when you put that mission first, and that's at the forefront of what we're doing, like you're not going to go wrong. It just might sound confusing at first. It just might be a new concept. It might just be something you've never heard of before. But the mission is always, how can we put you in a position to be first? And as long as we can do that, that's going to drive the train to move the company forward, to move these individuals that come in and out of our practice forward. So like I
That's,
always say, they're not doing it to be mean,
I
just
know.
doing it to be fair.
Yeah. And the quality of care is so much better. I mean, even as a therapist, I just felt so much more in tune with my patients. Like, oh my gosh, they're paying me actual money to get this service. I'm going to do everything. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
kill myself to make sure this person gets better because I just want it so bad for them. I know they're using their hard earned money. And when it's insurance, you just don't really feel that same vibe. I mean, patients usually don't know that they're paying something up front either. So they kind of feel like, coming in for my free therapy. A lot of people end up with surprise bills later, but it's just a really cool model where it puts some pressure on the therapists a little bit. And I think it's a good thing to have that little bit of pressure so you're not scrolling Facebook like I was
Right.
at my in network job
Maddie.
today. Uh, did my grocery orders. So, what are you going to do with your business? Do you have any long-term goals for it, or you just kind of taking it day by day?
Yeah, so I always thought that I hated change. And I realized that I don't hate change. I'm just a very nostalgic person. So if something is like deep and rooted in me, it's hard for me to change that. So I know my employees will say this time and time again. If I don't like something, we just change it. If a staff member doesn't like something, we just change it. And so if I look at the long-term trajectory of the business, right? It's, are the patients getting better? What's the satisfaction of the staff? And how is the health of the clinic? And I think that those three things just intertwine all day, every day in the head of a business owner. And if you can take those three pillars, I don't know. I don't know what that trajectory will look like. Sometimes I just think like I want to sit back on the farmland of Ohio and not do anything. Some days I think I'm just going to burn it all down, the business, burn it all down. Some days I think like, oh my gosh, I want to get to X amount of visits and I'm just going to push and push and push and push until I get there. Some days I feel, maybe like one day a year, I'm like, oh, I'm content. This is good. But that's very rare. So yeah, I think long term looking like how can I make a business and continue to create the mission that gets people better, where my staff is super happy to work and it's still giving me the life to be with my family, with my friends, to have the creativity in running the business. And what that actually looks like, I have no idea.
Mhm. Yeah, just listen to that. That sounds just so pure. Those intentions are so beautiful and so great. So that leads me to think, what what do you think with your background with running and all that stuff? Did that kind of teach you with your business? Because I feel like some of the stuff that you say, I'm just like, this has to come from somewhere down deep, from your running. I mean, every time we're boxering each other, you're running pretty much. So,
Yeah, fair.
does it come from some of your background in running, do you think? Like how you're,
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've done 8 Ironman, which is 140.6 mile race, and I love it. I love and perform so well, like whether it's under pressure or just like when like your back's up against the wall and things get hard and it's like, okay, what now? What next? Like I love that. Like they say that you get three things from your job, or people go looking for jobs for three things, and they might get two out of the three: the challenge, the lifestyle, and the money. You're probably not going to get all three, but you might get one or two. I love challenge. In entrepreneurship, it's a game, right? You either love it or you hate it. And I think that there's so many times we hate it. We are tired and mad and exhausted. Like deep down, we love that and we love that challenge. And, being a mom and having a 2-year-old, I would love to go be training for an Ironman right now. I would love to be on my bike for 100 miles, a 5-hour ride right now. I would love that, but it's just not realistic for me at this phase in my life. I had done 8 Ironman. My first one was in 2011. My most recent was in 2021. And 6 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. It was a very shocking surprise pregnancy. But I was like, what am I going to do now? And I just continued that mental fortitude and that mental fitness of, oh, this is my new Ironman. Like, this is how I can stay mentally strong. This is how I can manage relationships. This is how I can manage hard things. And for me, like running and swimming and biking and training, like that's where I go as a place of refuge. That's a place of safety for me. That's where I go when things do feel incredibly hard, that can allow me to process the hard conversations or the hard times that we have as business owners. And so I think that like just so much of the mental fitness comes from my past experiences, and it's always why I lean on running. And it's always why when we see runners in the clinic, because we do treat a multitude of orthopedic, like of course we have a pelvic health specialty, but we also are running related injury specialists. And it's why like when that gets taken away for somebody, it is so important to get them back there, because we all go to that place for safety, for something. So we're running from something when we're running. And it's like, what is that? And how does that allow us to have that outlet in our lives?
Yeah, I totally feel you on this. So, a little background, we've got a little group chat. It's Caitlin and two other girls that I'm hoping to have on the podcast too. And always we're in that group kind of complaining and like, oh, it's so hard. Um, and we're like, when are we going to stop? Like, we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and add a location, add another staff. And some days I'm like, I just love that thrill. Like I'm addicted to growth. I think it is again like similar to you, just background in sports and just I'm kind of addicted to it. It's crazy, and I think it's almost like my new sport is business ownership. Um, but we're always talking in that group like, okay, like once after I hire this person, I'm gonna just stop and we're just gonna kind of chill here and coast for a while. But none of us do. We try. Like it almost is gonna take a lot of discipline to wanna put our foot on the brakes a little bit because I think we're all
There's this, I love country music, and Morgan Wallen has one of his lyrics, and it talks about like, I'd hit the wall before I hit the brakes. And I'm like, that is me to a T. Been there, done that. I'll do it again. Probably doing it right now.
okay. I love this question, but what are three mistakes you made when starting your business?
Okay, I love this question too. 3 mistakes I have made since starting my business. Number one, number one, always number one. And I don't think that this was necessarily my intention. It wasn't like a bad thing, but thinking I could work less and make more money. It just doesn't happen. So I would say
Yeah,
that would be number one.
I think the work
Especially
gets different. Like you're not grinding the patient care, but now you're grinding the marketing and yeah.
right, right. The other thing, number two, would be thinking I could do it all myself. You know, like I'll just stay in the solopreneur world. It's great. It's easy. I make money and I keep the money. But then you have other problems like who's going to help grow? How are we going to, our schedules are full. Like, where do we put people? How are we helping people? And then the third one is just, I say this all the time, but it's just defining responsibility and where your responsibilities are. And I think that this also, it's important for patients, it's important for staff, it's important for personal relationships, but I'm responsible to you. I'm not responsible for you. So I think having that mindset with my staff members, having that mindset with patients, like when you're under the umbrella of my care, I'm responsible to you. When you're my employee, I'm responsible to you, but I'm not responsible for maybe your words or your actions, or what you do when you're not in therapy. And I think when you go to leading a team, it gets a little harder to, sometimes we might take things personal, or something somebody says might hurt us, or people come to us and ask for more money, and it's like, it's just delegating that responsibility to now having more people under our umbrellas. And so that's like something that I think I felt super responsible for: patients' outcomes, getting better, making sure my staff is happy. And those are all incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important things. Like I said earlier, those are like the top pillars of having the business. But being able to not feel like that is all on me. And sometimes you just have to let some of that stuff go.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. Can you help us envision your practice a little bit more? So, who has kind of all come together to help mold your practice into what it is? I mean, I can see from the outside, like your husband has a really unique influence. She has an amazing admin. We talk about our kind of dream team out of us four girls, and Rhea's definitely on the dream team for admin. She sounds like she's great. And then kind of how the ortho and how you do the ortho and pelvic, because I think a lot of the listeners are probably just pelvic, but I'm curious how you kind of combine those in your practice.
Yeah, I think it was a very, 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 very organic avenue for me to grow in, personally and professionally. So I always thought, when I was in PT school, I thought my first specialty would be in pelvic health. And when I was 20, I grew up playing basketball. When I was 20, I started running. And then by the time I graduated, I had done a few Ironman through PT school. And I just love running and running related injuries. To run is to get injured. 82% of runners get injured. So you're going to get injured. It's just, what matters is what you do about it. So all in for, gosh, the first 8 years of learning about running related injuries, being a runner. And then I had a C-section, and I was like, I am in no way, shape, or form ready to run. You like have this thought of, oh, the baby's due in August, I'll be running by fall. Like the best time of the year to run in Ohio, I'll be running by fall. And that just was not the narrative at all. So during my pregnancy, I had tried to find somebody that could take some of my patients so I could have a maternity leave. Well, that didn't happen. So then when I came back, I was like, wow, I have way more responsibility at home, but I still need to run this business. And I thought, where am I replaceable? I'm not replaceable as mom, but can I be replaceable as a PT? And I can do more of running the business, right? So my first hire was actually my favorite professor in PT school, and Dave Griswold. Always super proud to have him on my staff. And it's great because I can learn from him. We all learn a lot from him. He's an amazing person, amazing clinician. So that was great because he brings a wealth of ortho to our team. And then, I really got into learning and a ton about postpartum care and pregnancy and just trying to learn all the things. I took my level 1 course, and then I was like, crap, I've created more problems for myself. I want to get moms back to whether they want to run or just have active, healthy, fulfilling lifestyles. I now need to do that because I lived that narrative. And I realized there's a huge there's a huge hole and gap that we need to fill in women's healthcare, of course. So I found Rachel on Instagram, and I think we just like were mutually following each other, and we started messaging, and I had no idea she was a pelvic floor therapist. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And after about 3 months, it was 3 months of the day, actually, I got her hired, and she is now our full-time therapist. And she is just amazing. Like, I am so lucky to have her. She's fantastic. And then, so Dave was February, Rachel was the following August, and I just had part-time admin. And then in January, I made a big list of everything I hated to do in my business. And I turned it into a job application for an admin. And I posted it. And I had an interview with Rhea. And I said, what made you apply for this position? And she said, that job application, I read it and I thought, oh my God, that is me. And I said, well, we are two totally different people. We'd probably never be friends. and you're hired because that job application is everything I don't want to do. So I think like there's so much culture in it's so important to have a great culture and then to fill people's cups and their needs in ways that make them feel supported. And also like what are their areas of expertise or like the zone of genius. You know, she has an art degree, so it's creativity, things that she can be creative in, things that she can create. Us as service providers, we're very communicative and compassionate, and so, you know, it's really hard as a business, so as a physical therapist, first and foremost, to not be doing all the physical therapy. But I still want to spread that mission and be with my son. And so I can't see all the patients, but I can train the staff because those staff members can hit so many more people than just I can. And that can spread that mission into our community. And so that was my only way that I could figure how can I still do this as a mom? How can I still do this as a business owner? And how can I do this the right way? So that's what landed me. I love my staff and I'm so lucky. And then we just hired JC, who is also learning pelvic. She graduated just this past year and she's just a doll.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I know it just, I think as PTs and OTs, we have pride in our work, and it is a little bit humbling when you hire people like, "Ugh, okay, I got to relinquish control. Like, I know I could get this patient better, but I'm going to hand them off to her and see how she does with them." And then you realize like, okay, I guess I wasn't the only one that could get all these people better. It actually is
Yeah.
trainable and other people can do it. And then it just, man, your mind can really start to dream big when you're not seeing patients all day, every day.
Oh, for sure.
So tell me too about Drew, your husband. I don't know if this is proprietary information or not, but he has actually helped a lot with our staff with like objection handling. Just his framework that he uses. What kind of objection handling does your husband usually recommend? Like what I think he has it broken down into 3 steps that he usually takes. So her husband is in sales, and yeah, we kind of use his framework for any objections with our patients. So that's been cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so my husband's in sales, and so he, you know, when you're selling something, guess what? People are giving you their money. Their most important, well, I always say the two most important things people give us in our world is their time and their money, and we have to make sure that we're handling those things with care. So, yeah, my husband being in sales, you hear objections all the time, whether it's cost or time or I don't know, gosh, the things that we could hear. School, school's starting. We're busy. We can't take this meeting. There's just so much. And so something that we do a lot and like what he's really trained me in is just like our objection response. So when you are met with like let's just use price because we see that all the time in our line of work, Maddie. It's like you want to acknowledge what that person might be feeling. Yes, I understand that the amount we charge might sound like a lot of money. So the first is the acknowledgement. Yes, I hear you. I validate you. I see you. And then let's discuss it. I understand this might sound like a lot. Our goal is to put you at the center of the universe when you're here. You are the driving train behind your care. We're doing everything in your best interest. And unfortunately, in the hospital system or an insurance based clinic, that's not the case. And then let's transition out of that. How does an appointment on Friday sound to you? And so it's really validating the person, meeting them where they're at, and then what's the solution that we can provide? We can get these people better. I most certainly know that we can. Sometimes it's when somebody comes at us, do you take my insurance? Okay, can I get your name? Tell me why you're asking. Because if I just say no, there's the end of the conversation. So I really think that like when we talk to these people and having the patient-centric approach, why are they coming to us in the first place? Why are you picking up the phone to call? Why are you submitting that online inquiry form? Why did you send us a text? It's not fun. nobody comes to physical therapy to have fun. Nobody wants to necessarily be here. And then you come to our practices and you're like, hey, this isn't so bad. I actually kind of like this. And then we have patients come back all the time. But nobody wants to be injured. So let's see what that injury means to you.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of discussion around we're doing what's in the best interest for you. Like, let me meet you where you're at. Tell me more about you, and then we can answer your questions.
Yeah, I like that a lot because I think it's really compassionate and graceful and just you're not just putting down what they just said and like no 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 like it's you're hearing them out and acknowledging it. That's my favorite part is the acknowledgement piece. But
Well, and how much gaslighting is in the medical space? Like, rather than saying, like, oh, that's too expensive, right? And it's like, tell me, okay, you're calling because you're peeing your pants while you're running, you're leaking when you're running. Tell me what running means to you. Oh, well, it's a space for me to get away from my husband and kids for a little bit, to not be needed for an hour a day, to clear my mind, to push myself, to give me fortitude to go about the day. Okay, let's talk about that because you can't put a price on that. Rather
mm-hmm.
than like the gaslighting in the medical field of, oh, well, you just think that's expensive. Wait until you go get an MRI. Like, no, like, can we not? Can we not have somebody come to us who's telling us their problems and let's not blame it on them? And just
Mm-hmm.
the amount of that goes on in the medical space is just incredibly heartbreaking. And it's like, how can we? My mom tells me all the time, she's like, Kate, you can't change the world. And I say, yes, but I could change the one that I'm in. And so, like, how can we give these people a place to feel validated and a place to seek care and feel safe and feel well and feel accomplished doing so? Because I'm sure anybody that's listening can sit and think of a time where they've had an injury or maybe had pelvic floor dysfunction and you just feel like you're the problem. You just feel like it's your fault. And nobody's affirming where you are and showing you gracefully with compassion how you can get better.
Yeah, and I think as I've gone along and really started to see results with our patients, it really makes me sad actually if we don't convert a lead on the phone or during the eval. It breaks my heart at this point because I believe so much in what we're doing and I know that patient is probably not going to find someone else or take the time to go look. I mean, they might, maybe 5% of the time, but most people are like, screw it. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And they just never get better or get the help. So I think it's really important to be ready and to handle conversations well. I mean, the patient might not think it's in their best interest at first, but then, I mean, I don't know if I'd say that, but we really know it is in the person's best interest. Like what we're doing is life changing. So I think it's good to have.
Yeah, we say to patients all the time, just come in for your eval
Mm-hmm.
and let's have this conversation because you deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
You 1,000% deserve that. And I totally agree. So I worked with Rachel postpartum and I actually had my baby in August and then I hired her when he was a year old. So the next August. And I was like, I think I'm having prolapse. I don't know what is going on. Something feels really weird, really uncomfortable. I do not like to cough and sneeze. Like running is goofy. And I can't tell you how thankful I am for her care. I saw her once a week for 12 weeks, and I had no idea how much stronger I needed to be postpartum. I hadn't done that before. My body, I've done 8 Ironmans, and the amount of strain and impact to your body after pregnancy or birth is nothing compared to that of a race, right? I can hold that baby because she got my glutes so strong and my core so strong. He's 29 pounds. I could hold him for hours because she's made me so strong. And I actually had a staff meeting with them a few weeks ago. I don't think I told you guys. And I cried because I was like, you guys, our patients, we need to be very transparent on what their plans of care look like because they can't leave this place not getting their desired outcome and their desired goal. I said, for me as a mom, I didn't know. I didn't know that's what I needed. I just thought babies were heavy when they got a little bit bigger. I didn't realize, well, of course I know, right? Your glutes, they do two things. They extend your hip and they hold your posture upright. I didn't know that by getting them that much stronger, it meant I would be able to carry that little boy as much as I need to and as much as I want to. And that's the experience I was able to have. And if we don't give that experience to every single person that walks through this door, go home. We all need to go home because
Mhm.
every person deserves that. And they're coming in here and they don't know. And that's what we want to give them. I said, but we have to be clear and transparent in that delivery of this is where you're at. This is what my goal and my plan looks like to get you where you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it really helps patients when we have a very, very clear plan for them. And when I first started, of course, I wasn't super confident in what I was doing. And I was just, well, we'll see how you feel next week. Let's book
Yeah,
another one. And when I switched to more of a concrete plan, it helped patients feel so at ease, just knowing like, okay, there's an end in sight, and this is what it looks like. This is the path to get there, and this is the goal we're striving for. And here's the plan we have. It can change as we go,
right.
but yeah.
And like to your point, right? Like that's what that means to us in believing so much of what we do that if we answer the phone wrong, if we don't talk to the person that's calling and asking us for help in the right way, they're not going to get that.
Hmm.
And that is so sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, I mean it's just hard to find a really good clinician too. So I know if they don't come here, they're kind of toast probably for the rest of their life. So yeah, it gets really important. Let's talk again about being in a small town and how how that's been challenging, how you've overcome some of those obstacles, and what does your marketing kind of look like in your town? I know you have pretty deep relationships with the running community and things like that.
Yeah, small town's tough, as you know. It's quite tough. The one good thing about a small town is that okay, I'll tell you this. So, I mean, my town that I grew up in and where I live is very, very small. I think there were 92 in my graduating class, which was like the biggest class there's ever was. So one time, this was years and years ago, we went to a high school basketball game. I can't remember who we were going to watch. And my husband said, I will never go to a Lakers game as an A-list celebrity, but I have gone to a Lisbon high school basketball game with the Glenn family, so I know what it feels like. So the one good thing about a small town is you just know everybody. And I thrive on conversations with people. Like I love people. I want to know you. I want to know your middle name. I want to know your dog walker. Like that I love interacting with individuals. So we do a ton of like obviously word of mouth referrals. That's going to be our bread and butter. We do a lot of events, a lot of workshops. Like my girls know, just send her out into the wild. Just send me out on a marketing day, and like I just have so much fun, and I just love that. And so yeah, I think that's really important. And then just like having, I mean, we don't have like a big Instagram or anything like that, but like just being consistent and putting our faces on there and just having fun. Like I really think like I always used to say like building a brand before you build a business is so important. And I just feel like we have a really great brand and we have a really great vibe that by the time you're coming in here, you probably feel like you already know us. So I would say that's the good thing about a rural area. And then harder things too. Just less resources for a lot of people. And so that can definitely be challenging.
Hmm. Yeah, it was funny last night. Our other friend was saying that she wants to go to a dry bar, and like Caitlin and I are like, what? We don't have dry bars around here. We don't have a Lululemon. We don't have like what's that fitness thing everyone does? I don't know. There's all kind of fitness stuff, and we just don't have it. We have a mall that is shut down, and that's about it. Yeah. So I don't, if you don't know what a dry bar is, you might be in a similar situation,
Yeah.
Caitlin and I,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
your area. So we don't have an Orange Theory or
Oh, we do have one of those.
okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So they're getting there. But I know for me, our clinic in our smaller area, we have two clinics. But in the small town area, it just means so much when I see a name I recognize on the schedule from like high school and grade school. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. Just, I don't know. There's actually quite a few pelvic practices now in our hometown. Kind of the local ortho clinic now has pelvic kind of at all of their locations, and so yeah, I always just think like, wow, people are still kind of driving a ways. My hometown is about 30 minutes away from our clinic in Saginaw, and it's just like, oh, but still people choose to come here. They Our Facebook ad that's doing the best right now is like just a headshot, like a mug shot of me. And I think it's just like, oh, a bunch of people that like knew me clicked on that and filled out the ad form. And so that's kind of cool. What you can do for ads if you're in a small town is just really like using your face. People know who you are. That's a former Mertz. That was my former last name. Or you can even market like, hey, it's the what festival do you have coming up in Ohio?
The Johnny Appleseed? Or the Canfield Fair.
I don't
The
know.
Canfield Fair is going on right now. Like the largest state fair in Ohio. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
us.
Some of that stuff you can actually play up in your marketing and be like, hey, it's the fair. We're doing this special or whatever. So some of that, there is an advantage in that way for small town, but whew, it's definitely harder. And you guys have heard me talking about Caitlin before on the podcast. And
Yeah, the rural Ohio girl. Here she is.
yeah,
She works
that
way
works
too hard.
really hard that I feel really bad for because she works too hard. Uh, I wasn't going to show you that podcast, but anyway. Do you have any tips for mindset in general for business owners? Because I know even in our group chat, so it's Caitlin from Ohio, Allie from Florida, and then our friend from San Antonio. You guys hear me talking about all three of the girls all the time, but yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, Allie and Amanda and I, we kind of complain all the time in the group, but you're always so like happy, and I just don't even know how you do it.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I really think I'm stubborn. I'm very incredibly stubborn, probably to a fault sometimes. But I really, 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 really believe in my mission and I'm very mission driven. And I can think, like, man, how special is it to be able to wake up every day and know that you're helping people? And I can wake up every day and I can walk outside and I can spend a lot of time with my son. And that's the life that I've created. And how can that not bring you joy? You know? And it's like still being able to spread that mission with the help of my staff. And it's hard and it's a lot of change and it's a lot of, like flipping the whole business 180 degrees on its head. But what else was I going to do? Like that little boy is my responsibility and I want to be with him. And so, how does that look? And if we're looking at, core values, trust, transparency, communication, responsibility, and when you can combine like the core values that I have in life and the core values that I have for the business. And when they can parallel, that's when I feel really good. And that's when I feel really, really happy. And it's like, how can you drive that train to get there? So then there's that alignment in your life, you know? And it's definitely not easy. And I just think a lot of my background in athletics and, you know, I coach triathlon and have done that for 10 years. So there's a lot of leadership involved in that as well. And I think that that bleeds into how I am as a boss, right? Like I always say, I don't want to be a boss. I want to be a leader. And I just think like you just can't take things personal. You know, it goes back to like those lessons that you learn in business of I'm responsible to you, I'm not responsible for you. And you know, I say it all the time. You can't get what you're not willing to give. And we just don't make things personal. And so I have a really unique set of talents to just be able to turn that off. And there are some things that I just think with skin in the game and, you know, being in the ring and getting punched in the face every day, you just develop some thicker skin. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot, as I'm sure you know, to like make me mad. I mean,
Mhm.
I'll get annoyed, right? But for me to actually be angry or for me to actually be mad, then you've probably done something to my family. Aside from that, there's nothing that we can't shake off as humans or as business owners. And a lot of that just comes down to communication. And I think that I am a really good communicator and I've worked really, really hard communication. And I really think that a lot of it sprouts from that and being somebody that people can talk to. So yeah, mindset is tough and I don't know. I love it though. I love the work that can go into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so tough. It's hard to stop thinking about the business, you know, especially if something's going bad. It's like you just want to mull it over again and again and again all weekend. But yeah, you're pretty good at just living your life and keeping things that are important first, like your son and your family and stuff. So yeah, I think there was one time in the group chat where I was like, Caitlin, you're a little off. Like your version of being off was just you being like a little quiet in the group. I was like, oh, is Caitlin like a little like annoyed these days? That must be like her version where I'm like such a glass half empty person. I'm always just like, we're going down, everything's horrible.
That's so true. Like, no, Maddie, if you think it's bad, it can always get worse. Let's define worse and let's see that your bad's not really that bad. But still, like, validating you that I understand that this is uncomfortable and this doesn't feel good right now, and I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the more you go through things too, like you can prepare, but going through it obviously is like the way to figure out how to navigate it should it ever happen again. But thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Is there anything else that you want to chat about before I tell listeners where to find you on social media and all that jazz?
I think we did good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so
Thanks.
can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, so our Instagram business page is just crew, CREW _ physical therapy. And then mine is Caitlin _ crew physical therapy. So that's where we spend most of our time on Instagram.
Cool. All right. So give her a follow and I'll link it also below. Thanks again for your time, Caitlin.
Thanks, Maddy.